Hi, it's Steve Hargadon, and welcome to our Emergency Remote Teaching and Learning mini conference. This session is a 7-step plan to improve your online learning program for maximum student engagement with Ernie Delgado. Ernie, welcome.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm going to let you take over.
Okay. I'm just finishing up my little chat here. Well, thank you everyone for attending and taking time to introduce yourself to this model 7-step plan to improve or create your online learning program. As Steve mentioned, my name is Ernie Delgado. I'm the CEO of Beyond Technology Education, and I run a team of 18 educators and IT professionals, and all we do all day is support teachers, schools, students, families to embrace and become masters of online learning and digital tools in the classroom. So I'm excited to be able to present this to you and know that for a lot of you right now, you're in
Okay,
different
let's have you
states.
put your slides up.
My slides should be up.
Now you got to click the share button to take over. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay. How are we looking?
There you go.
Okay. I'm a go-to webinar expert. Getting online with Zoom is new for me, but I'm enjoying it so far. Now that I have Steve to watch out for me. Back to what I was talking about. As we work with educators from all over the country and some in South America, we're learning that people are at a variety of stages. Some people are calling their learning programs crisis mode, which is a pretty good description for where they might be. Some of them are in management mode. But I want to add another category, and this is something we need to be considering. Right now, this is our reality, learning, distance learning from home, working with students at home, doing things the best we can. But we also have to start preparing for the next phase. Okay, once we get our foundation, once our plan is in place and we've been through the motions for weeks or months, we need to start thinking about excellence. How do we now become excellent educators with this new environment? And I know for a lot of you, you're saying we just want to get through the day. We just want to get parents off our back. They're not prepared for this. All of those are relevant and okay questions and answers to ask and answer right now. But as we go through the phases of crisis to managing, we need to start preparing for excellence. And, for the last, and I hesitate to tell you this, but I've actually been in educational technology for 28 years. The last 18 years is Beyond Technology Education. This is the company I founded with my co-founder. And it's interesting, but our mission has been preparing learners for a very different future. Well, folks, we're in it. This is the future, and this is as different as you could possibly have it. Now, of course, we didn't intend for this to be the reality, but here we are. So the good news is that we have been preparing schools, school districts, and individual teachers for just this environment. And we've developed some strategies and tools to really make a difference. And so this presentation today is going to give you kind of the high points. Each of these 7 steps could be a webinar all by itself because there's so much there. So I encourage you, if this is not enough, if you need a deeper dive into this, if you really want some resources to help, visit our website, beyondk12.com, and you'll see a button called Free School Analysis. Let us reach out and provide some resources and help for you. And also, one of the other things you can do, we do weekly Wednesday webinars, and we've been doing this. And instinctively, when this epidemic first started, our instinct was free information for educators to help them manage this effort. It was chaos, and so we wanted to provide some relief to that. And I think we've done a great job. We actually have done 6 webinars, 7 including the 7-step plan we did this morning, also for our weekly Wednesday webinar. And I encourage you to watch these. They kind of build on each other. Our first one, transitioning to remote learning, was a great overview of different learning tools that you could apply. And it was a fantastic overview. And this is in the beginning. This was 7 weeks ago. So it was in the beginning stages, and I'll tell you, people watched this and had a sigh of relief. Okay, there are support, there is answers out there. And then we went to Google Classroom because everyone needs LMS. That's kind of your baseline, and we'll get into that a little more in depth here. But you need a home, and the LMS is it for you, your content, and your students. Google Classroom is the dominant one right now, but it's not by means the only answer. But we did a deep dive into Google Classroom with Melissa Collins, our school program manager. Some of you may have actually watched that webinar last week through Steve's group. And it's a good understanding of the tool. Obviously, to get the most out of Google G Suite and Classroom, you need to be a Google school. Our tech team did a deep dive into how to transition to becoming a Google school. Now, I know many of you already have this handled, but I need to mention these things because some of you haven't. Some of you are still trying to figure it out, and these will answer a lot of questions. Once you have that in place, meeting tools are critical. Zoom meetings, GoToMeeting. Microsoft has their own Teams meeting tools, and of course, Google has their Google Meets. All awesome tools. We did a great overview of those tools. And then the next logical step was screencasting. Teachers being able to capture video of what they're doing on their screen, annotate it, and put audio files on it, and present that and have that available for students. Very powerful tool. And Jennifer Gullidge, our curriculum director, did a deep dive into two very popular screencasting tools. And she actually has a favorite, but I'm not going to tell you what that is. You have to watch the video. And then last week we did another one. Jason Texel, our technology IT director, did one on a guide to Microsoft Teams for those of you who want to understand the Microsoft answer to this problem. So feel free, if we're on if you're on Facebook, go to just search for the Classroom Technology User Group and you'll find us. If not, feel free to email me directly, ernie@beyondk12.com, and I'll send you an alternative link. But with that said, let's jump into our topic. And as I mentioned, there's a lot going on here, and there's no way in 1 hour we could answer all of your questions, but let's at least hit some of the high parts. And I do understand that many of you already have mature programs. If you're following Steve Hargadon, you might be light years ahead of most educators. However, this is designed to kind of hit the high marks on how a plan should be laid out and some of the resources you should be aware of, but it also gives you some details and some samples. And so let's just dive in. I want to go through the 7 steps overview real quick, and then we'll hit each step individually. If you have any questions, I see some of you raising your hand, please put those in the Q&A box, and we will get to those at the end. So let's go through them. Number 1, your action plan team. You know, I can't say enough how important these decision makers are. These are people from your staff, from your school, stakeholders that should represent curriculum, IT, teachers, parents, and administration to make sure that you are all together on a plan moving forward and have a solid plan. And we'll get into how to develop that team. From there, number 2 is identifying equity and access issues, first with your teachers and then with your students. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, this is one of the most overwhelming components of this plan for me, because we're learning around the country, a lot of students, and I knew that a lot of students didn't have access to computers. I was aware of that, but I'm also learning that large percentages of students, and I'm not talking about 1, 2, or 5, but in some cases 10 to 40% of students don't have internet access. This just boggles my mind that in today's day and age, this is the case, but it is, okay? So I'll give you some strategies on how to deal with that. Step 1, you need to get your teachers ready, and then, you know, get the students on board, but the teachers need to be up and ready sooner. From there, number 3, assessment is critical. You know, what do your teachers know and not know about online learning tools and their role in an online learning environment? We have an assessment. You could find some others that drill right down into the facts of the matter so that you have data, so that you could plan accordingly and train accordingly. Now, I put students on there. This is a luxury for most because that's a lot of assessments and it's a lot of levels, and it can get complicated. And if you can, over time, you want to do that, but really focus on staff at first. And number 4, I get a lot of questions on this one. What is an EdTech stack? If you're in finance or marketing or biotech, you have your software tools stacked. Like marketing will have their CRM for customer management, their email tools, their SEO tools. It's their technology stack. As educators, we also need to have a technology stack, especially now in this environment. These are the tools that are going to help you stay in contact with your students, to engage them, distribute content, to be able to grade and monitor, and your tech stack is critical. And the tech stack is going to vary by level. If you're a kindergarten teacher, that's going to be very different from a high school math teacher. So we'll talk about the differences. And from there, number 5, training. And this is not something you want to simply look at and move on. This is a very important topic, because your people are going to be as qualified and as effective as they are, depending on the level of training they receive. And we call it the 3 C's: confidence, competence, content. Your teachers need to have those 3 C's in place to be successful. And there's a new word there: provide training for staff and students, obviously, but also quote unquote parents. And this is bringing up a whole new level of, I'll say, complexity. Let's use that word. A whole level of complexity now that parents are in the mix. Some parents, they're happy. They're loving this. Some parents are figuring it out. They're managing. Some parents aren't real thrilled with their new role. But anyway, we'll get to that. Number 6, designing curriculum. This is probably going to be the biggest part. Once you have your foundation in place, once you've identified your stack, once you've identified training needs and everyone's comfortable and they have the 3 C's, then that 3rd C, the curriculum piece, content piece, really becomes important. And this is going to take on a different level of importance for each of the different levels and subjects. But this is where we're going to go from managing to being expert and excellence. And if you want to be excellent as an online educator, this is where you're going to be spending a lot of your time, and researching and finding new tools and finding ways to quote unquote engage your students, because at the end of the day, they're not in front of you. So you need to do little tricks, and you need to do things that are going to keep them involved, on task, and excited. And there's lots of ways to collaborate. There's lots of ways to do virtual tools and communicate, create some social opportunities. We'll get into all of that. And then the 7th step is just to iterate, modify, upgrade, improve. And again, if we're going from crisis to managing to excellence, these are the steps you can take. And those last 2 are going to be ongoing. So let's move forward with our plan. And let's jump into the team. You probably already know, who are the players in your school, your district, your association, your group. Who are the ones that you can really bring in to help you make these decisions? I encourage you to have someone involved from all the major departments, someone from administration, someone from your board, someone from IT that understands the technical ramifications of what you're trying to do, and could also support your families and your students in their homes. You want to talk about curriculum experts. This is going to be big. You want to get parents involved, because once you have a vision, they're going to help you sell that vision to the other families. And then ed tech partners, from consultants like us to local partners like your local cell phone companies or your local internet providers. At this point, especially when it comes to the access and equity piece, we need to get creative in how we support learners. Now, I'll get to that, but this equity piece is really kind of, to me, holding back a lot of this. This plan is great, but if you don't have the tools to work with, you really need to focus on that problem. So let's talk about it. The biggest challenge I found is just access to the internet. What a lot of parents do not realize, that their smartphones, we are finding that most homes have a television. I think everybody has that. We haven't found many homes without a television. Obviously, if you're working with homeless students, that's not going to be the case, but we're talking about the traditional model. And most of those homes also have a smartphone. A lot of parents aren't aware that they could turn their smartphone into a hotspot. Just that one thing, mind blower, game changer. Now that you have a Wi-Fi connection in the house, now you need a device. Many schools are lending devices to students. They're buying inexpensive Chromebooks. We do have a source for refurbished Chromebooks. If you're interested, let me know. And being able to lend devices to students. What I am learning is, I have a second grader and he's on the spectrum, but like most second graders, like really pre-K through about third grade, those kids were raised with a piece of glass in their hand that you could touch that would load videos. And that's kind of their mode of learning. A lot of Chromebooks are now coming with touch screens. And so I'm encouraging schools as much as possible, keep touch in the picture. Obviously, if you're in an iPad environment, you're taken care of. If you're other tablet environments, but for the lower grades, access to touch is going to be important. The other big issue I'm learning about for access and equity is just having a place, having a classroom or just a nook somewhere in the home where the kid could have quiet time and focus and have access to the technology within range. This is becoming something else. And a lot of families are having one location and they're sharing it between multiple kids and parents that have to work from home. This is a thing right now, is managing devices at home and space. So keep these in mind as you're doing your surveys of your families. Do they have the internet? What kind of device are they working with? And maybe you have to help them and loan them something. And third, do they have a good space to do all of this? Again, I know for some of you, this is basic 101, but for many of you, these are new ideas that you haven't thought of before. There are going to be some unique requirements for special ed and for English language learners that you have to deal with. And there's no simple fix there. It's going to take a little more effort. I will tell you, my son, who I mentioned is on the spectrum, just did his, he just did one of his workshops with, I can't remember which teacher it was, but it was a special teacher, and he had no problem. And they were doing a video chat, and it's like she was in their room. He's thriving in this environment, and you're going to find the kids are going to thrive because they don't know a world without screen. This is very easy for them to transition into. Obviously, limiting screen time is critical, but having relevant screen time opportunities with teachers is going to help. The other thing I'm learning about is that, let's say you don't have access, let's say you don't have equity, and this is part of the challenge. Well, what other resources are available? We do have some teachers in these situations that are looking at local television programming, the local, excuse me, public broadcasting has lots of resources. Sometimes you have to find out what cable channels your families have. Everybody has a television. That is now a resource for content and education. The other thing I'm finding with some of my schools is they're just doing worksheets. They said, forget about the digital model. They're creating packets, and families are driving to the school and picking up their packets. They're keeping their gear on, their protection gear. But, at the end of the day, if you don't have any other option and you want to maintain instruction, that is an option. Probably the most creative idea I've heard, and I'm going to share it with you. It brings a smile to my face. A school that I'm working with in rural Texas has a huge internet access issue, and the local internet provider partnered with the school district and set up a huge hotspot in every parking lot of the schools in the town. And so what's happening is parents or high school kids that could drive already are driving to school, staying in their car, wearing their masks, and they're learning from their car because the Wi-Fi hotspot is supporting the whole parking lot. It's like a drive-in theater. I told her, please send me a photo of that. I need to see that. But it's being creative, and I'm finding a lot of vendors, a lot of people care and are trying to find solutions. Yes, you have your opportunists, but there are a lot of people that are doing things just to benefit and help through the situation. And I'm finding a lot of internet companies are doing that. The next step is assessing your staff. Now, probably the main thing you want to accomplish here, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, is you want to make sure you understand their knowledge of the foundational tools. That's your LMS, that's your meeting tools, your video creation tools, your digital apps, grade books, subject-specific software. You just want to make sure that they have that. Now, the good news is for many schools, this is something that you were already taking care of before this happened. A lot of our clients, I've been getting some really positive email from our clients. Thank you. This has not been a challenge for us. We flipped the switch, and I got this one private school I'm working with. I'll plug her a little bit, but she said we're doing better than the blue ribbon schools in our community, public schools, and she's a private school. So, this is not impossible. Training your people, getting them prepared. Obviously, it's going to be virtual training now, and making sure your students also have the tools to do this stuff. And, at some point in time, as you're working towards excellence, you keep in mind confidence, competence, and content as we drive through those levels of readiness. Now, EdTech stack is going to vary. Now, normally when I have this conversation, I have 4 levels. For simplicity's sake, and really practically, I'm finding that 612 can kind of use a lot of the same tools, unless it gets to subject-specific tools. But for the most part, the general stack is going to be the same. But for your lower level grades, it all starts with your LMS, and there's a variety of ways to go there. We have a lot of schools using Schoology. We have a lot of schools, of course, using Google Classroom, and there's a lot of other options out there. Seesaw seems to be the LMS of choice for the younger grade levels, more graphical, bigger buttons, all of that stuff. And then from there, Google Meets has become kind of the standard. Now, these are just suggestions. We're not telling you have to use these tools. This is just from our experience, what has happened. From there, you're going to want to understand and select your video content apps and websites. And this is where you can spend a lot of time on content, websites, and finding things that are relevant to your grade level and subject. And then, Flipgrid has kind of been a universal tool for surveys and just to keep students engaged. And you're going to hear any online education expert talk about engagement, because that's really the name of the game. How do you keep them involved? I've heard some scary statistics here out of, I'm here in Southern California, LAUSD, and absenteeism rates. It seems like a lot of kids haven't come back from Easter break. I'm not sure if that's happening in your neighborhood, but this is kind of the challenge is we need to get students back in and keep their attention. And these technical tools that you use are going to make a ton of difference if you choose the right ones for the right grade level. Grades 3 through 12, everyone's, kind of standardizing on G Suite, but Office 365, which offers free tools for education, is also a very good choice, along with iTools from Apple. All 3 of them work. They all do great things. And in those grade levels where students are able to keyboard, that's a good option. Now, if you look on the grade 3 through 5 stack, that is where you really want to don't give up on some of the traditional topics. Keyboarding is still an issue. I know a lot of the videos on the classroom of the future, there's no keyboards anywhere, but we're nowhere near that. We have keyboards, and students need to learn how to touch type. And grades 3, it's really the perfect time to start doing drill and practice. So you might want to throw that into your mix. There's some great free typing tutors. I'm not going to get into it. You probably know what they are. And in high school, a lot of for all of your grade levels, but especially in high school, there's some really great online textbooks and digital resources that come along with your textbook. So all of these things need to be evaluated. Now, the challenging part, and again, some of you are more sophisticated than others. For most of you, keeping it simple is going to be the name of the game. You want to standardize across grade levels if possible. It make it simple for training, for licensing, for support, all of that. But in high school, it's a little more challenging because some of these tools are better for certain subjects. So you might have more variance in high school, but generally speaking, in high school, you have more resources and you can be a little more sophisticated. So keep that in mind. And if you want to split middle school from high school, they are their own unique islands of information. I kind of grouped them here, but you can split them apart and have unique stacks for each. A fascinating quote from Scott Cooper. Wonder if Steve knows this guy. Do you know this group, Steve? It resonated with me because it talks about synchronous and asynchronous. And this is kind of the name of the game. You can't have a student sitting on a computer for 6 hours straight. We don't have them sit in a classroom for 6 hours straight. We break up the day. And, if you were to walk into what was formerly our dining room, which has now become a makeshift classroom, you'll find a schedule that my wife has developed with all the things that we do in a typical day with our son. And it's our learning calendar. And I encourage every teacher and every student and every parent to develop this model, because there's going to be times when we're all together and there's going to be times when we work independently. The first video we did, about 2 months ago when this first happened, was our the migrating to online learning. I forgot the actual name of it. The white one, the first one. Dr. V did that webinar, and what we learned there is that there's times when I know what I was. That webinar was actually created for a flipped learning group, flipped classroom. If you've ever done that or heard that, a lot of the methods were modified for online learning for this new reality. So Dr. V is an expert at flipped learning, and the webinar was modified for online learning environments. It's a great model because a lot of the tools are the same. And the asynchronous synchronous concept, there's going to be times when we're together. It's challenging to get your whole class together at one time. That's sometimes challenging. Maybe you want to chunk it, but a lot of times the learning is taking place independently. You're not directly involved. They're working with their parent, or they're working independently, or they're collaborating with another student or group of students. Maybe they're collaborating inter-classroom with another classroom, and you and another teacher are working together. Maybe it's a lower grade, upper grade working together. There's so many strategies to handle this that you need to evaluate all of your options and see what works the best for student engagement, because at the end of the day, increasing student engagement, again, is the name of the game at this point. So let's talk about training. Obviously, for your staff, you want to do some type of assessment. If you're interested, we have a technology assessment for teachers. I hope Steve doesn't mind me mentioning that, but it's a wonderful tool. It's a Google form. We open it, we give you a couple hours to take it, shut it down, and give you the results. But the tool is very powerful in that it lets you know who needs help where. And it's all based on online learning tools and strategies. So we ask questions about the tools they're using, their level of use, and then how are they handling their online learning classroom. And it gives us some data that you can now use to develop practical, necessary training. Some of it's going to be group training. Some of it's going to be individual one-on-one training. So group to granular. And that's something that we can help you with as well. We do trainings all day, every day. You might have people on staff that could do this, resources. But at the end of the day, you need confidence, you need training, and you need people to understand that. And modifying pedagogy in this environment is critical. I mean, this is just a different way, and we need to understand that. And part of the engagement really aligns itself with classroom management. That is still, classroom management and online student engagement, they're kind of like flipped now. Engagement helps management, whereas in the classroom, it was kind of the other way around. So all of these things need to come together. And one of the other areas is rethinking lesson design. I'm going to give you some tips on that were shared with me from someone I really respect. So I'll get into lesson design later, but this is another important category as you redevelop your lesson plans for the new normal. And again, who knows how long this is going to go on? It could be the new normal. I don't know. None of us knows. Your students, again, the easiest part of the equation, they'll get up to speed rather quickly. There is a little more concern in pre-K through 2, and the parents need to get a little more involved there. But for the most part, your students will get up to speed very quickly. I'm going to share with you a computer science model that we have developed, a curriculum, in a moment that could also help with preparing students. And again, moving from crisis to managing to excellence. At some point we need to get back to excellence and leveraging this model and finding ways where it could be better. Wouldn't that be crazy if we learned at the end of all this that this is a better way to teach? I'm not saying it's going to, but wouldn't it? Can we just put that out there that maybe we can make this awesome. Maybe we can make this, excellent. That I don't know. I'm putting it out there. Don't count it out. The new category of training is parents. Now, yes, we've done a little bit of stuff in the past, parent letters and stuff, but now it's a whole new ballgame for parents. And did you hear my shoulders dropped because I'm getting a lot of negativity on this because some parents are really not happy. Obviously, there's a lot of stress in homes. People aren't getting paid. People lost their jobs. People are sick. People are losing loved ones. I'm not going to go down that path, but um, we're all parents. Most of us are parents, I should say. And this is a challenging time. And so to put one more thing on their plate for some of them, is not good. They're just not ready for it. However, in a good model, as we're working towards excellence, they need to be brought in and they need to be massaged and they need to be prepared and trained in a very kid glove way, because at the end of the day, that might be the piece of the puzzle that's going to provide excellence. You're not in the home with those kids all day, every day. The parents, for the most part, they should be anyway, are there. They're busy, but they need to learn their role. I mentioned having the schedule clearly identified and helping the kids stay on task. And for the little ones, maybe even helping them with logging into stuff. So they need to be prepared on all of that. And maybe it's a team teaching thing. Maybe one parent helps several kids. Maybe you have some assistant teachers out there that you never knew about. Now it's their time to shine. Again, we need to think of all different options at this point. I mentioned someone I respect very highly. Dr. Hoffman is a professor at Cal State Fullerton here in Orange County, my alma mater. And we go to her for a lot of our research elements, and she's very strong in so many ways. She does a lot of teacher preparation. And, the role of the parents is not to teach the kids. So we all need to be on the same page. They're not, some of them are, but that's not the goal. The goal is for you to teach the kids, or your teachers to teach the kids, and the parents are supporting you. They're helping you with classroom management. You're in charge of engagement. They're in charge of management. So understanding the role of individuals here and having, compartmentalizing things in a way, I think will avoid a lot of drama, a lot of animosity, a lot of anger, and could really be, again, that piece of the puzzle that smooths the whole thing out. And that's the role of the parents. And, I know it's easier said than done. Here in my house, I had to fight for that schedule on the wall. I go, babe, this is what we promote. This is what we train. This is what we teach. This is what we know works best. And it still took a week to get up, but it's there now. I won that battle. Thank you. So I know this isn't always practical for a lot of parents, but yet we need to keep going. We need to keep working towards excellence. And I'm going to keep coming back to that. So a couple tips. So there's the things that we've just learned that have made some difference out there. Socialization opportunities. Your students were used to going to school, going to recess, going to lunch, hanging out with their friends after school, going and doing their homework in the library or having a coffee or whatever. That isn't available anymore. That does not mean we can't help them socialize. Virtual recess. I've had kids go out there and they do push-up contests and they run and see who runs back the fast. There's all kinds of really cool things. My son yesterday, we downloaded an app where they could identify plants. And we walked around our neighborhood with our masks on, and we took pictures of plants, and we did a little chart of the different plants in our neighborhood. He was fascinated. He couldn't read a lot of the words. I couldn't read a lot of the words. Who names plants? It's crazy. But we had a great time, just he and I at lunchtime, spending an hour outside doing that. Kids could do that together. Virtual lunch, virtual PE, virtual Starbucks, just kick back and relax with each other and be able to be social. It's just bringing the human element back to this as best we can. Always be improving your methods. There's a term I learned a long time ago called CANI, C-A-N-I, constant and never-ending improvement. And I still believe in it. And today, as educators, if we're in crisis stage, the goal would be to move into the management stage where we're managing. But in the back of our mind or in the front of our mind, always be aware that we want to be excellent. We want to do this great. We want students to thrive. We want learning to improve. And we want to prepare students for their future still. That's still our job. And so keep that in mind. Looking for new ways and sharing those with each other. We're a community of learners. And I thank Steve for creating this community. He's done a great job. I've known Steve for probably over 15 years, Steve, I think it is, maybe even longer than that, but great resource. I've always appreciated his work. So let's talk about some tips for students. And again, there's many. These are just a couple that popped up. And maybe some of you have more. We could talk about that in the end. Maybe you're already doing that. I'm not reading the chat. I'm trying to stay focused. So maybe you guys are laughing at my presentation. I don't even know. I'll find out. I get to read it later. Just be organized. I will tell you this, with cloud services, we did a case study about 10 years ago with a school in Orange County. It was one of the first one-to-one Chromebook schools. And when we did the research, the students, one of them said, I'm more organized than I've ever been. My computer's more organized than my bedroom. I know where everything is at. And he goes, and I can find it on my phone. I can find it on my computer. I can find it on my dad's computer at work. The Drive, the Google Drive environment, this cloud services organized everything. Encourage students. A lot of them already have this handled. I'm also finding that it's a good time for students, and it's easier said than done again, to be honest with themselves about where they fall behind in their studies and their practices and their habits with learning. What are they good at and what are they not good at? Do they love watching videos? Do they like collaborating with their peers? Do they like listening to their teacher? Do they like reading an article? And finding out what works best and start really making instruction individualized. And I know we've been doing that for a long time. And maybe it's time to start thinking about, as we go from crisis to management to excellence, start doing that some more, really fine tuning our model for each of our students individually. What else do we have to do right now, folks? We're not going anywhere. I'm just happy to be able to talk to other humans besides my wife and my son. This is making my day right now. Thank you, Steve. The comfortable workspace. This is a thing also. The students need to find. Not only does it have to be comfortable, but if they're going to be using their technology, it has to have, good access to their Wi-Fi signal. Create a schedule. I fought for this one, I told you, and I won. Be accountable. Ask questions, be part of the process. And like everybody that we're talking about, every stakeholder, be open to new ideas of learning. That's what this is all about. Some people are excited about what's happening right now in this online learning. They get to sit home in their pajamas all day. This is their dream, and they get to teach their class in their pajamas. Why not? And they're finding ways to really leverage technology and use it to benefit students and benefit themselves. And again, they're managing and they're working towards excellence, as we all should be. Now, this was, I mentioned Dr. Hoffman mentioned the ADDIE model, and many of you are aware of the ADDIE model if you're not already applying it. But this is the one thing she mentioned, from Germany in her military uniform, still wishing she could be here involved, helping everybody. This is a time to readdress this model, because as we are redeveloping lesson plans, these steps help. They make sense. And hopefully this resonates with you. Maybe you're already doing this, I don't know. But she said it's a good time to reevaluate these. Something else you may want to do, there's a more deep dive into this on our website, in our blog. Dr. Hoffman from Germany, serving our country. Thank you for your service, by the way, Dr. Hoffman, was able to write 2 blog posts. One of them she did early on for students. For teachers, how do you teach in an online learning environment? And this is one of the suggestions. There's a whole list of suggestions she has in there. So if you go to beyondk12.com, up in the top right, the K-12 Daily Dose blog that we are very proud of. And you could find her webinar, or not her webinar, her blog post there. She did another one for parents. I also encourage you to read that, and maybe even share that with your parents, because it really is a good list of responsibilities. And a lot of the things we're talking about here, I pulled from that. So it might be a little redundant, but it's a link you could share. which would be nice. Um, and, you know, if we go back to before COVID-19, if we go back to when life was more normal anyway, um, you know, our discussion was helping students prepare for a very different future. And this is what I had in mind, you know, and the future of work, quote unquote, is going to be very different. And I remember Steve and I were having this conversation, and we were sparking because we both get this concept that right now we are preparing kids for monumental change. And I still, once this thing turns around, I still know there's going to be monumental change, and work is going to be different. Skill sets are going to be different. Are we, as a K-12 organization, as a K-12 industry, are we preparing kids for the future the best we can? And only you can answer that question for yourself. From what I know is we want to do it better. We want to be more excellent at that. And so these skill level progressions is something we developed to help educators kind of see what's the scaffolding, you know, what are we working towards? You know, AI, machine learning, gene editing, you know, I don't see this stuff happening in your classroom, but we could talk about it, especially now that we're looking for resources and tapping into new digital resources. You know, find some experts in these fields that are able to talk to students about these things, especially middle school and high school that are starting to prepare for the future and prepare for careers. We have an opportunity through that curriculum design phase to start thinking about getting excellent with what we do and leveraging digital resources and tools and people that care. There's so many people that care that would love to help. Just, you know, go on LinkedIn and find experts somewhere. You know, there's Twitter. Be careful on Twitter, but there's places to find experts that can lend resources to you. People, right, especially now that they're sitting at home looking for things to do, there are opportunities right now like never before. And that's, you know, not to preach or to get on a soapbox, but right now is an interesting time where I see a lot of people becoming introverted and being fearful. And there's some concern there, but there's also the other side of the coin. Be excited, be open. This is, you know, everything is going to reset after this. Our world is resetting. I can see the mountains from my bedroom, from my home office here. Beautiful. The sky is clear. The water's clear. The birds are, our earth is healing right now like never before. And I'll stop that right now. But we're also going to reset as the human beings on this planet. We have an opportunity to rethink our role as educators. And these tools are available, and it's an exciting time for many. Don't give up. Don't give up. You know, please work towards excellence. I mentioned some of the digital resources we have available. Our K-8 curriculum is a computer science / literacy curriculum, is, in my opinion, the best on the planet. I will give you a free unit if you're interested. We're making that offer available. That's one of the things we're doing. Free. Everyone wants free. I'll give you a free unit. It's actually our coding unit. So if you would like to send me an email, Ernie@beyondk12.com, say, hey, Ernie, you mentioned that free curriculum unit. I'll make sure to get it out to you. It's a PDF, and enjoy that. And then the last button, or the last step, the forever step, the step that never stops. It's the ongoing step forward, and that's the iteration process. To iterate, to improve, to learn, to measure, to experiment, to explore, and keep fine-tuning this model. And, you know, if I know we've covered a lot of different things, and we haven't gotten too deep on anything, kind of hitting the tops of the mountains here. But the one thing I just want to stress is, yes, many of you are in crisis mode. Many of you are in management mode. How do we get to excellent mode? That's where it's trial and error, like everything else. We do that in our classrooms. You know, this is just it's a clean slate. It's like a blank canvas that we get to be creative, and dream and think and imagine new, better ways of doing what we do. For many of you, this has been a smooth transition. For some of you, it's been a very challenging transition. For some of you, you know, you don't even know where to start. And that kind of goes for school systems. I've talked to school systems around the country, and they fall into three categories. Thriving, they just flip the switch, they're going. They had the devices, one-to-one environments, everyone was trained on the tools. They haven't missed a beat. Especially online schools, obviously they were doing this already. The other group is trying to figure it out. Probably that's a lot of you. You're trying to figure it out. You're doing some stuff, but you want to do it better. You know that there's a path towards excellence, and you're asking questions, you're attending webinars, you're listening to what Steve has to offer and what we have to offer, and you're taking notes and you're building a plan. I love that. Thank you for that. The last group, they've thrown in the towel. They've given up. Unfortunately, this is a lot of school systems around, I'm based in the US, and they basically said, we'll see you in September. And hopefully, my hope and prayer for them is that this is something, yes, they've thrown in the towel for now, but they will regroup and improve their model over the summer, and September will happen for them. Because if you don't start now, you have to start somewhere, and now, if not now, when? So for those throwing the towelers, if you know who they are, bring them back into the community. Say, hey, don't give up. There's people out there that can help. Let's do this together. Iterate as necessary. I like that one. Put yourself in their shoes. That's for some kids. This is no big deal. For others, this is a complete change, especially for parents. That keeps coming up. I mentioned partnering with your co-teachers. That's kind of a cool thing that's happening out there. And communication with parents is critical. So anyway, I'm going to go to Q&A. Obviously, I'm going to put up my website address one more time. And Steve, are you there?
I am, and you have a number of questions in the QA chat. One of which is, are you going to make the slides available? You don't have to, but if you want to, I can post them on the site.
I could do the slide. Yeah, I'll make the slides available. Although I do have a similar video, so I could give them both, because the video would have my words. The slides would just be slides. So I could provide both if that's.
Well, we're going to post the recording of this session.
Oh, perfect. Then yes, I will give you the slides. Based on your experience, what is the best platform for teaching students in rural areas? I'm assuming, and this is Esadki. I'm assuming Esadki, or ESSADKI. Those are all capitals, so that maybe that's an acronym of some sort. I'm assuming that you're talking about your LMS, and that is a loaded question because they're all good. They all serve a purpose. Now, what I'll tell you has the most momentum right now is the Google Classroom environment, because you can't beat the price point at free. Is Google probably collecting data? Probably, but who isn't? So, Microsoft Teams is a new player to the game if you're a Microsoft guy, but there are all sorts of choices from Schoology to, there's several. Canvas is another popular one. So yeah, I think you kind of have to review all of them. And then, I'm not sure if you're an individual school or a district, but at some point, whoever you're working with, you need to standardize, because you can't be all over the map. At some point, you need to have similar tools for training for support purposes. So that was a live answer. Okay. I'm not sure if I did that right, Steve. I clicked answer live after I spoke. Did it capture that or not?
Well, answer live just makes the question invisible.
Okay.
So you can go to the next one.
What is stack? So the technology stack, and I use the analogy of other industries. Certain industries just have their stack of tools, digital tools. Let's talk about finance. Finance has their banking tools that people use to support their industry. Marketing has their stack of tools. Education also needs to develop your stack of tools. So it starts with your LMS on the bottom. That's kind of your foundational tool. And then on top of that becomes your meeting tool. And then on top of that would be your screen capture tool. Then on top of that would be your video website tools. And so you're going to have a stack depending on your grade level and your subject. It could be 8 tools. It could be 18 tools. It could be 28 tools. It depends how deep you want to get into it. But yeah, there's a lot of, you want to have a stack. And again, I'm going to go back to the what I mentioned a moment ago. You want to have a consistent stack. for your school, if possible, just for training and support purposes. If you have everyone doing something different, you can't collaborate for one, or it makes it challenging, if anything. And it's also difficult to support. So keep that in mind. Let's see, need the refurbished Chromebooks address. Many of our parents do not have big data plans for their smartphones. I myself am having connectivity issues. I think it has to do with bandwidth in our neighborhood at different times of the day. How to deal? Well, you could try to improve your plan. Now, my thought process and what we've been encouraging schools to do is first start with your teachers, get them going. Try other methods. If your Wi-Fi is not working, maybe you could get a mobile hotspot. Maybe that will work better. Yes, there's going to be data limitations, but those are all reimbursable charges. So, again, don't quote me on that, but you probably want to talk to your school or district or organization if you have to upgrade your plan or pay for additional time. There's got to be someone that's going to pay for that from your school or district. So again, don't quote me on that, find that out, but look for other options besides just the Wi-Fi. And maybe it's just a matter of upgrading your plan. And for the Chromebook issue, reach out to me again, Ernie at beyondk12.com. And I will send you a landing page address for that. Let's see. How many states offer library websites that support younger learners as well? You might want to consider mentioning this resource. Steve, this is your expertise. Library websites that support younger learners. Do you have any input on that?
I don't, but it's a good question, and maybe someone could reach out to me and I'll see if I can find out.
Okay. Yeah, Steve's the resident library expert. Let's see, dismiss that one. Dismiss that one. Okay. What technology would you recommend for writing on PDF docs that are being screen shared? Now, this is an interesting question because this actually came up right here in my home. My son's teacher is not super technical. She's younger, fresh out of college, but not super technical. So she's been sending a lot of stuff in PDFs. And so the kids would have to print them, answer them, scan it, resend it back to her. It wasn't the right model. You could create, you need to actually have the right PDF software, and Adobe Acrobat is the best. There's another one called Nitro PDF, which you could get. I think there's a free version of that. And you need to make your PDFs editable, meaning the boxes where words need to be, it actually becomes a typable box. So it does require not just a PDF reader. You need actual PDF editing software to do that. Now, the challenging part is the good ones like Adobe Acrobat are pretty expensive. I'm not sure, Steve, have you seen an educational license for Acrobat?
No, but there is actually another solution, which is any Chromebook that has touchscreen or tablet capability, you can write on PDFs. And I now get all my books in PDF form because I can make notes on them using a Chromebook tablet.
Perfect. So now, would that work with any Chrome browser, Steve? Even on will it work on a PC with running Chrome?
No, it might, but I know that on the Chromebook tablets or the Chromebooks that flip and become a tablet, writing on PDFs is super easy.
Awesome. Good tip. Let's see. My 9th grade students are reluctant to participate in class. They typically have the option of chat or audio, but they tend to turn on the Zoom and check out. Any ideas? It comes back to engagement. Something where they have to pay attention and they want to pay attention. If it's a collaborative exercise, if it's something video driven, if it's something that you captured on the screen, there's lots of different strategies. I would encourage you to reach out. Melissa Collins, our expert, might have more suggestions for you, but unfortunately she wasn't able to make this webinar, so you got me. And she could give you some additional ideas, but engagement is critical, and that's exactly what you're running into. We've mentioned it a couple times. Let's see, can you talk about assessment, both summative and formative? We are actually, as we speak, let's see, Aricana Rosario, or maybe it's the other way around. We are actually in the process of researching the best options for assessment. and for grading, because these are topics that keep coming up. And we have a couple solutions, but we want to make sure that we evaluate all the options before we have a formal answer there, because there's a variety of solutions. So hopefully we get back to you on that soon. Beth has a question. Do you have ideas for how to teach emerging technologies without students actually having them? Not just coding, but things like VR and makerspace. Yeah, the best way right now is just some videos on those topics, and some ways for students to actually get involved with understanding those tools without accessing them. I think VR and AR are two of the up and coming things that for some reason have not really launched in critical mass yet, but you can still learn about these things. I've actually invested in what's called Google Cardboard for my son, and it is a VR headset. I think it was $12, and that's an option to get involved with VR. Steve, did you want to add something to that?
No, I don't have any better answer than you do.
Oh, I thought you said something about live. Okay. Could you please share the Google Docs you mentioned? I assume the Google Docs you mentioned. What Google Docs did I mention, Steve? I'll share these slides if that's what you're talking about. I hope that's what you're talking about. We'll get back to you on that. The link to the Facebook group, it's actually, you have to just go to Facebook and type in Classroom Technology User Group, CTUG, Classroom Technology User Group, and the group will pop up. My email address, again, Ernie, ERNIE, at beyondk12.com. Could you share the slide with the technology curriculums again? Yes, I can. There it is. What is the best platform for teaching English? Well, again, another loaded question. There's lots of great answers out there. You know, I think some of the big ones are Duolingo, Rosetta Stone. Steve, anything that you recommend?
Sorry, no, I'm not focused right now, but I apologize.
Oh, no problem. Let's see. What's your opinion on Moodle for smaller school districts in Canada and the USA? Is it still relevant? Moodle is still relevant. It is still relevant. There are a lot of competitors to Moodle. You know, it's not as user-friendly as others, but if you already have it, you might as well use it. And also, if you are learning Moodle, it'll just give you that much more knowledge when you transition to something different. I mean, if that's the goal, to change to something different. But yeah.
I can't say for sure, Ernie, but I'm thinking they maybe meant the technology slide that had the different stacks for each of the grade levels.
Okay. Let's see. What is the 80-20 rule? Well, 80-20 rule is an interesting concept. It basically states that 80% of your problems or challenges will come from 20% of your users or students. So 80-20 rule just means there's going to be issues, and it's probably going to be the same students over and over again, but you probably already know that from your classroom experience, and you probably already know who those 20% students are. That also goes for parents. 80-20 rule applies to parents that might have issues with things. 80% of your issues are probably going to come from the same 20% parents. It's kind of a universal concept. I did not get the Facebook page. I think it's facebook.com/groups/Beyond K12. I believe, and I just don't have an open browser right now to check. But if you can't find it there, just go to the search bar in Facebook and type in Classroom Technology User Group, CTUG, it'll pop up. I teach textiles, sewing, and cooking. Ooh, fun. Any good ideas for how to address this? Many do not have the equipment or funds to do so at home. You know, it's funny. One of my first video series I ever did was me cooking in the kitchen. and people just loved it. I was shocked. I actually used Instagram stories to do it. And I'm not necessarily saying you should do that. Although Dr. Hoffman did mention that students, they don't like to text message as much as they like to use, what is the tool she mentioned? There's certain tools that students are using that you could try to leverage yourself. Why can't I remember the name of it? Oh, here it is, Snapchat.
Snapchat.
Snapchat. Yeah. Snapchat is still big with the younger group. So, there's different ways when it comes to things like that. Yeah, it's going to be hard for them to reproduce the experience at home. I mean, you could do some tutorials, offline, asynchronous, but live cooking videos, you probably are going to get the parents watching also, just so you know. People love that. Let's see. Someone actually made a suggestion. Great sites for books for young learners, Storybook Online and Epic. Thank you for that suggestion. What is the best assessment tool for learning online teaching? The assessment tool that we developed, in my opinion, is the best because it's very current. It was just updated a month and a half ago. Reach out to me if you're interested in learning more about our assessment, Ernie at beyondk12.com. The document for the parents screening. Still not sure what that doc was. And then see, what is your email to get the curriculum? Again, my email, Ernie at beyondk12.com. I think we got them all, Steve.
Okay, that was a full hour.
Boom. I appreciate all of you so much. Steve, I appreciate you for making this possible. And, I mentioned it before, I'll mention it again. You're either in crisis mode or management mode. Maybe you're in excellence mode. I don't know. If you are, share it with the world. This is a time for all of us as a community to come together, and we're pivoting, we're transitioning, we're doing things differently. Different doesn't have to mean bad. There's opportunities where we can maybe do things better. And I think that's the hope we need to throw out into the universe, that we will find ways to improve our methods, to make our students better learners, get them engaged. It is a challenging time. I wish I had better answers for that 9th grade teacher. You need to do a little trial and error and find out what's going to get their attention and work. And maybe it's using some of their social tools. Maybe it's more video-based instruction, the flipped learning concept type stuff. But at the end of the day, don't give up. Don't give up. This is a time where we all need to be, we need to persevere, we need to push through, and we will all come out on the other end better for it. And basically, I like to say, together we win. So thank you for everybody, and I appreciate your time. And if you need anything from us, please reach out and let us know. Steve, thank you for your opportunity here.
Okay, thanks, Ernie. Thanks, everybody. Still 2 more sessions in our mini conference. Hope you're having a fun day. Bye now.